Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Troy Underwood, who is the author of How to Launch Your Side Hustle, Start and Scale a Business with Minimal Capital. Troy, welcome to the program.
Glad to be here.
Hey, give me a little bit of background on yourself and then what prompted you to write your book, How to Launch Your Side Hustle, because I've seen for years and said for years that today, as compared to 10 years ago, that side hustle, that moonlighting, that side business is so much easier to start because of technology and the gig economy that we're in. So I'm excited to hear about your book, but give us a little bit of background on yourself.
Background on myself, I've been an entrepreneur in some scale, way, shape, or form since I was in elementary school. And I didn't really think about it too much. I just did it. And then I thought back and I said, well, that was kind of entrepreneurial. That was really neat. So it wasn't strange that I eventually wanted to run my own business as an entrepreneur. It was pretty easy. You brought up the technology, absolutely easy, I think, to be able to do your full-time job and then start a side hustle that can eventually grow to be your main source of revenue. What I did was, as a software developer, I was able to do multiple things, and I was a consultant, so I built software for a lot of different companies. So I got to see the inner workings of so many companies that just made me think I could do this, or this. And eventually, one of the problems that entrepreneurs have is they have too many things they could do. They eventually need to narrow it down. So my impetus for writing the book was I was talking to a passenger on a plane next to me some time ago, and she said, that's an interesting story. You should write a book. And I did. I mean, I literally started it within 2 seconds of her saying that. I picked up my iPhone. There was a few hours left on the flight. I started writing. And then I kept writing, and the next day I wrote, and I wrote, and I wrote, and I wrote. And I wrote the entire book on either my iPhone or my iPad.
Awesome. And obviously, I've heard, and I know you have as well, the phrase kind of like success responds to momentum or the velocity of an idea. And when you get that idea, don't just go, oh yeah, I'm going to put that on my to-do list. Someday I'll do that. You jumped on it. And then that momentum started taking over. And then just out of curiosity, did you find that once you started that process, you would be doing something totally unrelated to writing or new content, and a thought jumps into your mind, and then you're like, oh, where's my phone? Where's my tablet? Let me add that piece of content to this.
Oh, exactly. If I didn't have my phone next to me every time I got an idea, I'm sure I would forget some of them. So no, I was drafting little notes. I would send text to myself. I would do anything I could to go, oh, that's a good, I can't forget. Don't forget that.
Yeah, that's really good. So then what's the whole point of the book in this sense? What sets it apart from other books like Launching a Side Hustle? Because probably, I've not done this, but if you Googled Launch a Side Hustle, I'll bet you there's one or two links on Google talking about how to do this. So what is your unique spin on this?
My spin on this book and why I thought it was a little bit different, and there's a lot of business books out there. There's a lot of books about different entrepreneurs. I enjoyed Richard Branson, How to Lose Your Virginity, Losing Your Virginity. And I read Michael Dell's book, and I did a whole bunch of them, Bill Gates. Being a Silicon Valley tech entrepreneur, I focus a little bit more on the tech guys, but I've read just dozens and dozens of these books, and they're fantastic. However, they talk about the 1/100th of 1%. I wrote this book for the 99% that can actually start it, that aren't going to go to Sand Hill and get a $50 million venture capital seed round.
Yeah.
These are for people that are just normal people, and they've got an idea, and how can they how can they work it? And maybe they're a software developer, maybe they make widgets, but they don't, they're not born with a silver spoon. I'm not suggesting that, the others I mentioned were born with silver spoons, but it made me start thinking, what is important to me? How did I do this? I mean, I just did it because that's what I do. Even writing the book, I didn't think, I have a plan at the end that's come back and said, well, you need to tell everyone you wrote the book with your thumb. That wasn't my goal. I looked back at it afterwards and said, no excuses. People say, well, I would write a book, except I didn't have a typewriter, or I didn't have a computer, or my keyboard was. I just think there's no excuse. Just start doing it. You might plan a little bit ahead. There's nothing wrong with planning, but don't let anything stop you. And everybody that has a failed business always has some excuse. And stop it with the excuses. Just get down and do it and make it happen. So this is for the 99%. These are for the people that maybe can get a credit card. They've exhausted their rounds of friends, fools, and family. They can't quite get up to angel investor. How are they going to do this? And what type of ideas can they use to be resourceful? And that's one of the things that it talks about, because there's 1,000 ways to do it.
Yeah.
The way I did is just one way. So they can explore that, read 2 or 3 books, read 5 books, and explore different ways. Start your mind thinking, how can I do that? Well, that doesn't quite work for me, but if I do it a different way, that will work for me. Not everybody's, the software is easy, especially if you are a programmer, because you are your own labor. You don't have to go out there, drum up some money and get someone else to work for you. When you start out, you can just start working, start making it. So maybe you're working your side hustle between 9:30 and 11 p.m. because you have your real job and you have your family. And that's enough. Start with that and have a direction, have a goal in mind. It doesn't have to be perfect, because that end goal will change. It may change 100 times, but you basically know the direction you want to go and keep at it.
I liked how you mentioned after you exhausted your first round of friends, fools, and family, because that's typically where people go is, let's look at some credit cards. Once you've exhausted that, what is the next best step that someone can go to? Because a lot of times it will depend on what type of business you're looking to start. Because if you're looking to start an intellectual capital type business where you're just using your brain power, you don't really need much money. If you're a book editor and you just want to get the word out about your new editing service and proofreading service, you don't need money for that necessarily. But if you wanted to start a brick and mortar or start something that needed equipment, now we need to have money. Where are you guiding people once they've kind of exhausted that initial burst, where people have maybe helped them out a little bit, but now they need to go more?
Well, it's a little bit like Barry Sanders as a running back. You have your plan, the offensive line does their job, and then all of a sudden, whoops, this defensive guy wasn't supposed to be there, so I better turn left or I better turn right. So you have to do it a little bit like that. As you see some obstacle coming your way, you need to work around it. Or get over it or under it. But there's control your expenses. Make sure. I see a lot of people, they get really excited and they do have some brick and mortar. They want to open a small business, it could be a bakery or something. And they go out there and over commit on the rent. Yeah. And it's just not going to carry them for any length of time to get some real momentum going. So be very careful on that. Do it as small as you can. Don't go out and try to, buy a fancy car or fancy anything. Just make sure that you live within your means. So the expense side is very important. And then on the income side, make sure you get some revenue, start rolling. And also think about it with your exit in mind. Exit can be anything you want. It might be, yes, I want to run this till I'm 87 and then give it to my kids or grandkids. Or it can be, no, I want to run this 5 to 7 years and sell it. I have to get an investment banker, put it on the market and sell it. Mine, I told my employees, I am not going to let my grandkids run this. I'm going to sell this in 5, 6, 7 years. It took more than that, but we're always working towards that goal. The financing side of it, I talk about this a lot in the book, can be a lot of different things. And it could be credit cards. It could be a second on your house. I mean, people have to be very, very aware of the risk involved in borrowing against a credit card or even a second on your house. I really used real estate. I looked back on it. I didn't say I'm going to go in this with a plan to use real estate to finance my business venture, but that's what I eventually ended up doing mostly. Now people say, well, how are you going to go buy some real estate? But buying a real estate is a whole separate topic. And yes, you can buy nothing down over the phone. There's a lot of creative ways to buy real estate, and I've done several of them. I mean, it's an interesting world there. But I used it to start the business, and I made more money on the business than I did on the real estate. And then I invested back in real estate, sometimes successfully, sometimes not successfully, because at one point I made money and then I lost it all. And a fair amount of that was real estate related in 2008. But that's just part of the story of life.
Yep, you got it. What do you say to someone that likes the idea of side hustle and extra income? Should everyone be an entrepreneur, or should everyone consider having that side hustle? Because I feel like sometimes there would be those outliers where it would be detrimental to divert your attention from your main focus.
I firmly believe that not everyone should be an entrepreneur. Everyone should consider it, maybe look at it and say, does this fit me? Does this fit my personality? And it doesn't fit everyone's personality. I've had long conversations with people who say that, oh, no, you should really work for the man, work for the big company. They have benefits. There's a lot of people like that, and they should look at it and look in the mirror and say, I shouldn't do this. In order to be an entrepreneur, you can't be partially committed, half committed. I look at it like climbing Mount Everest. If you're not committed, you're just going to get halfway up and die. Yeah. Or, be a drain on somebody else as well. So you have to look at your personality and do a real reasonable assessment. Do you have the personal, not the skills as far as what is my college degree, or I can't do this because I'm not a genius, or because I don't have a college degree or the right training. None of that matters. You don't have to be a genius. Matter of fact, it's probably better if you're not. I'll say it's definitely better if you're not a genius. I talk about that a little bit in the book as well. And you don't have to have a college degree. You don't have to be smart. You don't have to start with a lot of money. But if you do look at that and say, I really want to run my own business, I have ideas, I think I can narrow some of those ideas down and actually do something that I find interesting. Passion is always overrated, so don't do it because I'm so passionate about it. You have to be a little bit sensible as well. But I would say 99% of people should not be entrepreneurs. They don't have the ideas that and the mental fortitude, if you will. They will try it and then they'll find some excuse when it fails, which inevitably will. I mean, you look at the statistics. The statistics support what I'm saying. 90+%, even higher in some industries, restaurants, whatever. These people, I love to do this. Let me go do it. Just because you can cook doesn't mean you can run a business.
That's a big deal. I want to ask you, what do you feel the difference between an entrepreneur and a business owner is? But to frame that question, based on what you just said, I also feel like there's a difference between having a side hustle and being an entrepreneur and being a business owner. So compare those three categories for me.
Well, the difference, I think, between being an entrepreneur and a business owner has to do with a little bit of the exceptionalism, if you will, that an entrepreneur, something a little bit risk-taking. If you want to own a business, you could just go buy a Chevron franchise or a 7-Eleven or something. Did you change anything in the value chain? Did you increase utility along the way? Did you add anything? Did you take any risk? If you don't take any risk and you don't have any, shall we say, skin in the game as far as doing something different, you're not, I don't think. Now, there's a lot of different definitions of entrepreneur. Some people think it's the intermediary between labor and capital. I look at it and say, if you added something, if you took a risk and you created something that wasn't there before, as opposed to just going down there buying a corner store and doing exactly what the guy did before you, which is exactly what someone did before him and exactly what someone did before them, that's a business owner, and that's fine. And there isn't anything inherently bad about that. And I even go into further detail on the idea of necessity entrepreneurship. So yes, you're an entrepreneur, you're a risk taker. Look at Howard Hughes or someone like that. And that's not to disrespect anybody who takes this path, but they're just not a necessity entrepreneur. Howard Hughes could take all the risks he wanted because he always had daddy's money to fall back on. Well, what about the other 99.9% that don't have daddy's money to fall back on? That's a necessity entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And then
it's kind of like burn. You ever heard the story "Burn the Boats"?
Yes.
Kind of like that. If you got daddy's money, or like Shark Tank, you see it many times. It's like, hold up, I'm out because you said that daddy is supporting you and is a major investor, so you don't have that fight or flight kind of a mentality. So the necessity entrepreneur, if you've got to make this happen, because if you don't, who knows what will go on with your family, you're going to make it happen. I think that's a really big distinction. What do you think about this? And I've heard this so many times, and I really feel that there's something to the concept of being a business owner. Is the example you gave where you own this business and you're doing the same thing that the person before you that had it, and you literally are clocking in as the owner of the business, but it's really owning you. You're just putting in your hours and it's running. The entrepreneur takes some creativity to take it to the next level. The entrepreneur might be able to step back away from that so that they work 2 days a week in the business and they've got someone running it, and their entrepreneurial capacity kicks in where they're going to start a different business and then now have someone running that aspect of it. How do you find that creativity that infuses in with that scenario?
See, I think the creativity is incredibly necessary there.
Yeah.
The creativity, the risk taking. You look at Star Trek, and you have Picard, and he's trying to convince Kirk to go back and save the universe with him, and at first Kirk doesn't want to, and then he comes back and jumps his horse, living this fantasy world, and jumps his horse over the creek, and then tells Picard, yes, I'll go back and save the planet with you. And then Picard says, how come now? Now you tell me that you're going to go back and save the universe. You've jumped that creek 100 times, but now it's not real. And Kirk says, well, this is the first time it didn't scare me. So there is a certain amount when you don't know. Everyone has, 20/20 hindsight, but no one knows what's going to happen in the future. You have to be so committed to yourself, to your skills, to your perseverance, that you can do it. I mean, it's one thing people said about me, Trey, you never doubted for a second that you'd do this. Everyone else thought you'd fail, but you never doubted that you would do it. And I never, the idea of failure never crossed my mind.
Awesome. What do you think about this? We've talked about the difference between entrepreneurship, business owner. I almost wonder if some people are, got their feet firmly planted in the corporate world, but they've kind of got that inkling like, could I be a business owner? Could I be an entrepreneur? That side hustle could be the gateway to kind of dip that toe in the water and go, okay, hold up. I don't need to quit my job and put my family at risk and start this business and hope that the statistics, failure statistics take over. I'm going to start that side hustle and kind of get some momentum going on the side and then see where it goes. Is that kind of the approach that you took in your book?
Well, I present that as an option, but
Yeah.
to just casually see where it goes, you could be Barry Sanders. I mean, you can move right and left and just see, and sometimes you need to take a step back and say, well, I tried this and it didn't quite work, but I have this other opportunity. And then you have to ask yourself, okay, somebody came along, offered me this great job, and I don't have to have the late nights. And that can be fine. And there's still ways to make money and have great life and have a great family and have everything fine. If somebody has that entrepreneurial fire burning, then they may not take that. They may turn down that fantastic job and really want to step out on their own and just take that risk. So I never said I have to do it with this time frame, and I have to do it with with this software package or anything. I looked at it and said, okay, these are my rough timelines. This is what I roughly want to do. But I also, it's like the Eagle Scout, the Boy Scouts, be prepared. I was prepared for whatever opportunity might come my way.
Yeah.
And as I was developing software, I had a lot of opportunities and wondered, hey, if any of these, can I take any of these and really run with it? And I did. I took one that was really kind of interesting, an old paper. Everything I did was taking laborious, manual, labor-intensive tasks. One was filing motor vehicle paper titles, and I converted them all to electronic. And it's really kind of interesting because when you're a Silicon Valley software developer in the 80s, you're akin to a magician. You can do things that people haven't even conceived of yet, and it's commonplace to you. You're just like, well, why would you not use a computer? But at that time, most people did not use a computer. But every decade has something that's cutting edge like that. It doesn't have to be, oh, well, I missed that opportunity. There's going to be another opportunity next week and the week after. Just because, you missed the horse and buggy doesn't mean you can't pick up on the, agricultural automation. Or now, just because you missed the microcomputer revolution in the 80s doesn't mean you can't develop iPhone apps in 2007 or 8 or 9. So there's always an opportunity. Just look and see, and you don't need to be on the bleeding edge. You can take something that's already well established. When I went out there with the electronic titles, I had to convince people to use the internet long before Al Gore even invented it, and that was tough.
Yeah.
To do business on the internet, I mean, the idea didn't exist, and I'm like, no, we can do this on the internet. Eventually, it took off. But I only did it because it made good sense. I wasn't going, I need to be setting up a new standard for business on the planet. It was just, hey, somebody invented this thing called a browser, and I can use this to do all this stuff. And eventually I could do the work of 100 people just by making it all electronic. And then with the second business, I did kind of the same idea. We did health insurance, benefits, enrollment, eligibility, benefits administration, which was very paper intensive. People would fill out the same application for medical, dental, vision, cancer insurance. Same information. We just took it electronically and then submitted it to the insurance carriers electronically, automating it and eliminating the need for people to use a pen and paper. So somebody else can find what works for them. I never went to high school and said, oh, I want to be the king of paperless titles. That's what I want to be when I grow up. I was going to go to medical school. So be okay with changing your direction if you
And watch out for that side hustle, because that's like what you said earlier, reminded me of the old quote, funny quote, luck is when success is when luck and preparation meet, so, have a little bit of luck, a little bit of preparation, a little bit of, or that all leads to success, because otherwise that opportunity presents itself and you, A, won't recognize it, and B, wouldn't be prepared for it even if you did recognize it. So for those that are listening that may want to look at starting their business with minimal capital and launching a side hustle, what would you say or what's the best way to pick up a copy of your book? I'm sure it's on Amazon. Do you have a website that you can point people to as well?
Yes, the book is on a number of sites, Amazon. It's on Target, eCampus. You can Google it. But if you go to troyunderwood.net, you'll see a little bit more about me, about the book, how you can use it to really give you ideas to take your side hustle to a reality.
Excellent. Well, Troy, thank you so much for coming on today. It was really fun talking to you about these fun topics.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.